Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Grey Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 1st of February 2021. Hey everyone, welcome to a new month, February. I guess we're getting out of Ethuary in January and now into February, but I guess it still works, right? One of the traders that I follow, Benjamin Cohen on YouTube, he was calling it Ethuary, and I always read that as February for some reason. So I guess it works for February as well. So we have two Ethuaries. Hopefully, we see I guess ETH going up more in price this month, like we did in January, so we can stick to that name. It's looking good, but we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, anyway, let's get into what happened over the weekend and on Friday. So I think the biggest news maybe over the weekend was that Elon Musk edited his Twitter bio and basically added hashtag Bitcoin to it. There's nothing else in there right now, just hashtag Bitcoin, which got a lot of people talking, right? People were kind of speculating, does this mean Elon has bought, BTC? Does this mean that Tesla or SpaceX has put it on their balance sheet? All this sort of stuff. I mean, it hasn't been announced that any of that happened. And I mean, he also had a tweet to go along with it where he said, in retrospect, it was inevitable. And I think, people were speculating on that, saying, oh, is he talking about Bitcoin, right? Because he put this in his bio and now he's tweeting this cryptic stuff. And who knows, right? It's all speculation. We don't know kind of for sure what's happening here. He actually jumped on Clubhouse last night, which was basically an app that allows you to do like voice calls with a bunch of different people, and you have like people listening in and stuff. And he briefly spoke about crypto, I think, for like a couple minutes. And basically, I think someone asked him what his views were, and he basically said, he thinks Bitcoin is like gonna, entering kind of the mainstream consciousness. He thinks that it's entering traditional finance now, and he kind of thinks that he was late to the party on it, and he kind of regrets that. So I guess very positive thoughts there from Elon, and he is the richest man in the world right now too. So it's not like he's a nobody, and he's obviously been around for a while. He's a serial entrepreneur, founded Tesla, SpaceX. You guys know the drill. So I think that's what gets people really excited, is that like this person who's the richest person in the world, like incredibly famous, does all this really cool stuff, is talking about Bitcoin and maybe even the wider crypto ecosystem in general. Now, I think he has tweeted about Bitcoin and Ethereum in the past, and obviously he's a big fan of Dogecoin too, so that's not new. But yeah, him putting it in his bio and then speaking positively of it, like in a non kind of jokey manner, seems to have gotten people like really riled up. And if you go to other kind of high profile celebrities, some of them have just hashtag Bitcoin in their bio as well. Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO, is obviously been a big fan of Bitcoin for quite a while now, and he has it in his bio. He's had it there for a while, and I think I saw another one called Mr. Beast from YouTube. He's basically a philanthropic YouTuber who makes these videos that go viral and then donates the money to people and gives it away and stuff like that. He has it in there. I think there's a few other kind of celebrities that have it in there. So, there seems to be this kind of movement, I guess, right now, which is cool to see. Obviously it's just Bitcoin, it doesn't say Ethereum or anything like that, but a lot of people's first kind of foray into the crypto ecosystem is through Bitcoin. So I don't think it really matters if it was, Bitcoin or Ethereum in there. They're going to find Ethereum anyway. And I actually wrote about this in the Daily Grey newsletter today. How I believe that even though, they have Bitcoin in their bio or hashtag Bitcoin, Ethereum is still going to be the biggest beneficiary from any new users coming into the ecosystem. And basically, I can summarize what I wrote by saying that the reason it's going to be the biggest beneficiary is because Bitcoin is a one-trick pony. You buy BTC, right? You discover why people believe it has value, why it's considered a store of value, and why it has potential to go up in price. But then after that, there's not much left to do, right? You go and then you discover Ethereum, and there's like a million different things to do. I mean, I don't have to explain it to you guys because I'm sure you're all aware. But DeFi and DAOs and NFTs and all this kind of stuff happening, right? It's just very, very hard to not come into Ethereum and not get sucked into all these rabbit holes. So I definitely think Ethereum is going to be a big beneficiary of this, even though, people are putting hashtag Bitcoin in their bios instead. I don't think that really matters at the end of the day. Following on from that point, Santiago from Parify Capital, I've spoken about him before. He put out a tweet today, which I thought was really brave of him because it's a bit controversial. So I'll just read out the tweet for you guys. So open quote, I'm increasingly of the mind that Ethereum and DeFi will be much larger, than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a store of value substitute like gold. Ethereum is also a store of value substitute, and DeFi unlocks entirely new economies and use cases. Case in point, Bitcoin on Ethereum/DeFi, end quote. Now, this is following on to what I was saying before about how I think Ethereum is going to be the biggest beneficiary of, this coming wave of people coming into the ecosystem, even though they're coming in through Bitcoin first, right? So, you could consider Bitcoin just another door into Ethereum, really, because, as Santiago says here, Bitcoin within Ethereum and DeFi, the BTC, the asset, is being used a lot. There's billions of BTC now on Ethereum, and that's only happened over the last few months, right? And it's not even like it's super trustless either. It's like the centralized wrapped Bitcoin is like the leader, and then we have these other kind of decentralized attempts at it, right? These kind of fully trustless like TBTC and RenBTC, but they're not ready yet. They're not ready to scale. They're not something that's kind of like got a lot of volume or got a lot of kind of liquidity around them. So there's that. And then, he also says that Ethereum is a store of value substitute like Bitcoin, so ETH the asset. And then DeFi unlocks entirely new economies and use cases because of this. And ETH the asset is typically referred to as a programmable asset, right? So, or a programmable store of value. Whereas Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network can't really do much, right? You can't program it to do like all the fancy stuff you do on Ethereum within DeFi. You have to bring it over to Ethereum to do that. Whereas with ETH, because ETH is the native asset of Ethereum, you can do whatever you want with ETH, right? You can program it to do any number of things and be used within the Ethereum economy to do any number of things, and people are obviously doing that a lot. So I think that Santiago's tweet here is definitely brave because a lot of Bitcoiners aren't going to like this, but I do think that this is kind of like what's going to happen, where Bitcoin and BTC, BTC, the asset, will exist for a long time. It'll attain value. I have no doubt about that. I don't even own any BTC, and I know it'll still keep going up in value. Like it just will. It has a lot of attention for different reasons, but that's its only use case, really. I wouldn't say number go up is its only use case, but that's the reason most people buy the asset, right, or interact with Bitcoin, is to buy BTC for number go up. Some people buy it as a hedge against fiat, right? Some people buy it as a store of value or like basically a way to flee capital controls and stuff like that. And that's all well and good, but the predominant use case is definitely its use for speculation, right? So, ETH is the same. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat it and say ETH is being used in any different way, but ETH gets extended by the Ethereum blockchain, whereas BTC is stuck on this Bitcoin blockchain, which really is extremely limited. I would consider it like a dying kind of blockchain as well, considering the long-term security issues with the Bitcoin blockchain. But then you bring it over to Ethereum, and then you just supercharge Bitcoin, right? You basically supercharge this pet rock asset that does nothing on the Bitcoin blockchain, but on the Ethereum blockchain, it can do the same things as ETH, except that it is not a fully trustless asset. As I just explained before, a lot of the tokenized Bitcoins, like wrapped Bitcoin, are fully centralized. So they're not the same as ETH on Ethereum in any capacity. And I was listening to Justin Drake on the Bankless podcast the other day, and he said that he doesn't think that we'd be able to get a fully trustless Bitcoin onto Ethereum for the next 20, 30 years. And that's because of unsolved problems with cryptography. Or at least I think he said that the theory for the cryptography to make this happen is sound and is being worked out, but the computational kind of effort that you need, or the computation that you need to kind of make this work, is too much for today's technology. So we have to actually wait for it to evolve and to get faster and to get better and more efficient. So, then we have TBTC, which is basically called trustless BTC, but it doesn't use cryptography to make it fully trustless. It attempts to use crypto economics to do so, and there's problems with this because with TBTC, it's inherently unscalable because you have to post collateral on the Ethereum side. So to mint TBC at the moment, I think you have to post 150% of ETH collateral. So it's kind of like what Maker suffered from by having just ETH as collateral. There's a kind of a ceiling that you hit, and it's very hard to scale, and it's extremely capital intensive. So from that point of view, TBTC hasn't really taken off, I think, because of that, whereas wrapped Bitcoin has, but again, it's centralized. So yeah, I think in general, if people want to use their BTC on Ethereum, most of them are just going to do it in a centralized way. But that's definitely going to lock out a bunch of people who think that they don't want to do this, right? They just want to kind of play with a fully trustless asset, which is fine. I totally get that. It's why I play with ETH a lot of the time. So that's kind of a hindrance there. But I think in general that hasn't stopped people from bringing their BTC over to Ethereum, and we're going to keep seeing that. But that just reinforces Ethereum's network effect, right? The Ethereum network, and then the ETH asset is the heart of that network, which just reinforces ETH as an economic and store value asset. So I guess to Santiago's overall point here, Bitcoin is basically a subset of Ethereum now, right? And Ethereum sits at the top, and then within Ethereum you have DeFi, and within DeFi you have like BTC. It's just one of the assets, right? ETH is another one, but ETH is a better asset than a lot of the tokenized BTCs that we have. So, I mean, yeah, when you really, really do think about it and think about the implications of this and kind of like, I guess, the mainstream implications of this, you come to realize that ETH as an asset and Ethereum as a network is just so much more composable, so much more kind of like extensible and programmable than Bitcoin, the network, and BTC, the asset. And, Bitcoin, the network, and BTC, the asset, will never be able to compete in that arena. They're not trying to compete because they don't want to, right, for one reason or another. And that's Ethereum's opportunity to take. So, yeah, I really like this tweet from Santiago. Had my brain spinning today, if you haven't noticed. So, but yeah, I'll digress for now on that. We'll move on to the next kind of things that happened over the weekend. So, 0x is guess one of the original decentralized exchange platforms. I'm sure many of you are aware of it, but they actually did their ICO in 2017. I think they launched in 2018, but they had some MVPs in 2017 where they basically had a kind of like this trustless OTC model, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. And for those who weren't around, 2017 decentralized exchanges, really there wasn't much options. There was Ether Delta, which was a fully on-chain decentralized exchange, which was extremely inefficient because every single action was an on-chain transaction. And even though the fees were cheap back then, it was still cumbersome. And it wasn't an AMM model, so the liquidity was crappy and had all these issues, right? So 0x is one of the kind of projects that was birthed to I guess, like rectify this. And they've had a slow start over the last few years, but lately their volume's just been exploding. You can see from this chart here that their volume is just the highest it's ever been. Basically, you can't see all the way back to 2017 here, but I'm pretty sure this is the highest the 0x protocol's volume has ever been. And this growth, I think, can be attributed to a few different things. Matcha. So Matcha is their DEX aggregator, which is really beautiful. I really like the site. It kind of reminds me of like Robinhood, but like for crypto. And that's driving a lot of volume, which has 0x protocol, the code underneath it, kind of powering Matcha. And then there's a popular wallet in Asia, in particular China, called TokenLon, which is also using 0x for a lot of volume and driving a lot of volume through 0x. And on top of this, 0x has a proprietary market maker model, from what I know, which it's basically permissioned market maker. It's basically permissioned, and market makers can sign up and add liquidity and provide liquidity on the 0x network for TokenLon and Matcha and anyone else to kind of tap into. So these are the three, I guess, main growth vectors for 0x and why they've grown so much over the last few months. So it's really awesome to see. And I mean, the growth has really been it took me by surprise as well when I was looking at the Dune Analytics dashboard for the DEX, decentralized exchange metrics. I saw 0x, it was like third or fourth. And I'm like, what? That's insane. It was only behind like Uniswap and SushiSwap and Curve, right? But Curve is just a pure stablecoin, mostly stablecoin AMM. So, you can say it was third behind SushiSwap and Uniswap. And as I said, 0x is not an AMM model. At the moment, it's a permission liquidity kind of model where they've got market makers providing liquidity. And, they're originally doing kind of order book models as well. I'm not sure on the status of that. But yeah, in general, this is really, really cool. And, I think they kind of, built through the bear trying to find like some product market fit. While AMM started taking off, they were trying to differentiate themselves. And I think they really have. I think Matcha, their DEX aggregator, is going to be very usable by noobs because it's going to be a familiar interface for them. They don't have to deal with most of the jargon. I think Matcha for some pairs is covering gas costs as well. So that's another big kind of plus there. But yeah, really, really great to see 0x continuing to improve and grow here. So kudos to the team for doing this over the last few months. So another protocol that has had amazing growth throughout 2020 is DYDX, which I spoke about But in 2021, they're having even more growth here. So they started off 2021 strong with 1.5 billion in dollars of volume in just January alone, and this is for their perpetual kind of protocol. And they're not on layer 2 or anything just yet. I know there's Perpetual Protocol, the literal other project that has been doing a lot of volume as well, but they're on layer 2, or I think they're on XDAI. They're using some scalability solution. But basically, DYDX isn't, so they're all on layer 1 Ethereum, but they're still doing $1.5 billion in volume on their perp product, which I thought for the month of January, which is massive growth. You can see here the cumulative volume over, I guess, the last year and then the last 6 months and last 46 days and 20 days. It's just been growing really, really quickly. And also on top of that, they've been teasing their layer 2 implementation coming soon, and they're working with Starkware on this. So I've spoken about Starkware before, how they're using ZK rollups to scale, similar to what Loopring is using. So I think this is going to be really big because as you can see from other projects like Perpetual Protocol who are using scalability technology, once that is kind of enabled, the volumes just explode and get much better. And the user experience obviously gets better and the fees come down and all that good stuff. So I actually think DYDX is going to have a massive 2021. I spoke about last Friday how they raised $10 million in a new round. I spoke about how I think their token's coming soon. So I think, yeah, they're going to have like a huge 2021, especially, with a token launch, which I'm sure they'll do a retroactive airdrop, with layer 2 coming, with the continued growth on layer 1. So they've even got more of a network effect there. Yeah, this is just going to be really, really great. And it's funny. I have traded on DYDX a few times, and I think what's holding back the kind of perpetual product within Ethereum is the scalability thing. And I think they saw Perpetual Protocol growing on layer 2, and they probably sped up their layer 2 plans. Whereas I'm sure they've been working on it for quite a while already, but they just sped up their plans because competition requires that. You don't want to lose out on volume and trading fees and growth to your competitors, essentially. So, yeah, really, really crazy to see this DYDX growth and hope it continues. So I put out this tweet last week that basically 7.2 million ETH is now locked in DeFi, 2.8 million ETH is locked in ETH2, which gives us a total of 10 million ETH, which is 8.8% of the current supply that is being put to work to power the Ethereum ecosystem. Last week, that was $13.4 billion. I think it's around the same as when I put this tweet out. I think I only put this tweet out like on Saturday or something. So not exactly last week, but over the weekend. But anyway, my main point here is that this is a massive amount of the supply being put to work, right? 8.8% of the current supply. And I think that's actually going to go up to 10% rather quickly. But yeah, I mean, 7.2 million ETH in DeFi, most of it in Maker and Uniswap and SushiSwap and Aava and Compound and stuff like that. So really being used as kind of collateral or a base quote asset for trading pairs. And then obviously 2.8 million ETH in ETH2, which is obviously staking in ETH2, which is actually locked. I know when we say locked in DeFi, most of the time, the collateral, the ETH isn't actually locked. It can be withdrawn at any time. Whereas with ETH2, most of that 2.8 million ETH is locked. It's not done through a custodian, which can kind of like tokenize the deposit, so you've got free liquidity there, or a service like Lido that does this as well. Most of it is, people just putting their ETH in and staking on their own, or kind of exchanges doing it. And some exchanges not even offering that kind of I guess you could call it like the immediate liquidity. So yeah, this is quite amazing. But what I really, besides the ETH2 thing, what I really wanted to focus on was the ETH locked in DeFi and how it's powering that kind of DeFi economy. Because ETH has 3 core value accrual pillars, right? And we have 2 of those today. We have ETH's use as trustless collateral within DeFi, which is where this $7.2 million ETH comes in. We have staking with ETH2, which is another core value accrual. And then the third one, which we kind of half have today, is its use as gas fees or as kind of like fuel for the Ethereum network. But the other half of that is EIP 1559. So when that goes in, that third kind of thing becomes a value accrual pillar, because at the moment it's not. At the moment it's actually detrimental to ETH's value, I think, because that ETH is going to miners and miners just dump that ETH, for profits, right? Or at least most of it. Whereas with EIP 1559, we'll be burning it and giving the value back to ETH and ETH holders and stuff like that. So those are the 3 core value accrual pillars. And the fact that ETH is being used as trustless at 7.2 million ETH is most of it is being used as trustless collateral within DeFi is quite insane. Like I think most of that ETH is in the lending markets like Maker, Compound, and Aave, and some of the other ones. But I think its use within Maker is probably the one that we should focus on the most, because when it's used in Maker, it can't actually be borrowed by anyone. Whereas the ETH on these money markets can be borrowed. The ETH within Maker is literally just sitting there backing up the DAI. It can't be borrowed by anyone. It can obviously be withdrawn, and the debt can be paid down, and you can withdraw your ETH and all that sort of stuff. But it is actually just sitting there powering this kind of massive Maker economy, or this DAI economy, which DAI is being used across the entire ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, and maybe I guess those three value accrual pillars, you could say that there's maybe a fourth one of ETH's use as a store of value, but I think ETH use as a store of value can kind of meld into points 1 and 2, where people are using ETH as trustless collateral because they want to hold on to it, right? They want price exposure to their ETH, so they're basically using it as a store of value. And same with staking. They don't want to give up their ETH. They want to stake it. They want to be exposed to ETH's price and get some yield on their ETH, essentially. So, I mean, yeah, that kind of covers both of those things there as well. So, yeah, I thought that was really cool. I'm curious to see what we get to by end of year here. Maybe we get to like 5 million ETH in ETH2 and then 10 million ETH in DeFi, which brings us to 15 million total. Maybe I'm being conservative. Maybe it'll be more. But you got to think as well that if you expect ETH price to go up, right? Maybe there's less ETH that needs to be locked for us to achieve kind of like $100 billion worth of ETH locked in kind of DeFi, for example. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I honestly didn't know how it was going to play out in 2020. I think at the start of the year, I can't remember how much ETH was in it at the start of the year, but it wasn't very much. And I think it blew away a lot of people's expectations, and ETH2 did as well, right? No one expected this much ETH to go into ETH2. I didn't expect this. I expected at most 2 million for a while, but yeah, 2.8 million already and growing every day. And, a lot of centralized exchange, kind of staking services haven't come online yet. I think Coinbase is coming online soon. They did say Q1, so they've got another 2 months. But that's probably going to add another, few 100,000, maybe 1 million ETH to this pile. So it's going to be quite crazy to see this kind of ETH2 lockup continue to grow. So Peter Pan put out this really interesting image here, and he basically has this image of how communities and DAOs develop operational autonomy. So for those aren't listening in, you won't be able to see the image, but basically it paints a journey of how, you start with the initial core team, and I think my camera's blocking it here, but you can see it in the small image. Then on the left side here, it starts with the initial core team, and then it goes on to your first 10 to 20 group of casual contributors, your first community-driven working group, and then some more casual contributors. And then towards the end of it, you have like multiple working groups, and this kind of gets you to autonomy. Now, what he's trying to paint here, or at least the picture he's trying to paint here, is that to become an actual DAO, you can't just have like a central team that's kind of controlling everything. You need to decentralize it out by recruiting new casual contributors or at the start, but then you need to start forming working groups. And what these working groups are, and we do this at the Index Co-op, is that they focus on specific things. So we have working groups for like the investment committee. We have working groups for like the design of the website and developing kind of stuff there. We have working groups for handling, maybe recruiting new people into the ecosystem, media and marketing and all this sort of stuff. It's basically like the working groups are essentially teams you would have in a centralized organization, except they're decentralized. They're part of contributors that are basically not, kind of working for any one company, but contributing to the protocol because they want to, and because they, maybe want to get rewarded with tokens and stuff like that. And then you get to the end when you have, and if you want full autonomy, the initial core team that kind of bootstrap this thing just becomes one of these working groups, right? You can have the core team working group, then you have like maybe 5 or 10 other working groups with all the community members in them to kind of automate this kind of decentralization you're trying to do with your DAO. So, I mean, Peter's really great with this community stuff. He's got a bunch of great blog posts. I'm sure you can find them if you go to his Twitter. Here, I'll link it in the YouTube description and you'll be able to find it there. but he's thought a lot about this and thought a lot about growing communities, and he was actually the inspiration for the Index Co-op and how we've managed the community there. He's been invaluable and in kind of steering us and guiding us and giving feedback on things, because he really does understand how to get to this kind of path of autonomy and decentralization, which I thought was really cool. I mean, for those who don't know, Peter Pan currently works at a fund called 1KX, but he's also responsible for Metacartel and VentureDAO, which are some kind of, I guess Metacartel is like a venture DAO. I know he's part of VentureDAO as well, but like a venture capital kind of like DAO that, would invest in companies or give them their first checks, and then kind of like help them grow and help them kind of become decentralized and DAOified and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, he knows what he's talking about, which, I've read a lot of his work, and it's really great. He knows exactly what people need to do to decentralize over time and to get to that point where you're an actual DAO, and this image is just one example of that. So yeah, I'll link it in the YouTube description. You can go check it out for yourself. So Biconomy introduced this over the weekend. It's a new product for developers called Biconomy Forward. What this does is it allows developers to integrate this into their apps, and what it does is it allows end users to pay gas fees in any ERC20 token and stablecoins as well. So obviously everyone knows that we currently pay gas in ETH, right? You need to have ETH in your wallet to pay gas fees to do anything on the Ethereum network. Now, what Biconomy Forward is, it's this thing called meta transactions, which have been around for a while. But basically what it does is it takes your ERC20 tokens or stablecoins, it runs it through a relay network, it does do the conversion to ETH, and then it pays the transaction fee using ETH. But on the front end, and what you pay as a user is that you pay in like an ERC20 token or a stablecoin rather than paying in ETH. Now, the reason why you would do this is obviously better user experience, but also there's another hidden reason in that you can save money by not using your ETH, straight up, right? Because for those who have visited the fees.wtf website, you'll be able to see that, the address that you've got, you'll be able to see how much you've spent on fees in terms of ETH and in terms of dollars. Because let's say you did a lot of transactions a year ago when ETH was $100 and something, right? It's gone 10 times since then. So the fees technically cost you 10 times as much. So whatever you were doing back then better have been worth the opportunity cost of 10 times the value of that ETH. But it probably isn't for most people. It definitely wasn't for me. So what this aims to do as well is to make it so that you don't have to give up your ETH. You can just pay in the token. So that's what I thought was really cool as well. And I don't think this would kind of trigger a taxable event either, because it's literally the fee being paid and you don't get any benefit from this. But that's not tax advice. I mean, that's probably a very gray area, and I'm not sure how the tax officers would treat that. But yeah. Anyway, I thought this was cool. If you're a developer, go check it out. It'll be in the YouTube description. So Hop Protocol came out of stealth this week, and now basically what Hop Protocol is, it's kind of similar to what I've spoken about in the past, where there's another project called Connex Vector, which is trying to kind of connect all the layer 2 and side chains together on Ethereum. And this is what Hop Protocol is trying to do as well. So it wants to be that kind of bridge from roll up to side chain, all this sort of stuff. And they've got a white paper here. I mean, it really is just a white paper right now. I don't think there's any workable kind of thing. It's being made by, the only person's name on here is Chris Winfrey, who is the founder of Authereum, which is a Ethereum wallet. But basically, yeah, it's a short white paper. You can go go read it to see what it's all about. But the reason why I'm interested in this sort of stuff is because, as I've explained before on previous refuels, we need to bridge the layer 2s. We cannot leave them all isolated. There need to be bridges. The liquidity needs to be bridged, and we need neutral infrastructure that does this and that is kind of decentralized and trustless. So I'm glad that we have Connex Vector. I'm glad that Hop Protocol is also announced now. I'm pretty sure there's others being worked on. We need this. And I'm very glad that there's not just one or two solutions. I'm glad that there's going to be multiple solutions looking at this. Because if we only have one or two solutions, then it kind of like, by virtue, centralizes a bit. And we're kind of not exploring the entire design space that we can be. So yeah, I'll link this in the description. You can go read the white paper to get a better idea of what Hop Protocol is. So your latest update from Ben Edgington on ETH2 came out this week. It's linked in the YouTube description, of course, but basically, for those who don't know, this is the best newsletter to keep up with ETH2 available. It's available at eth2.news. This is where I get all my ETH2 information from. Without it, I don't think I'd be able to keep up with ETH2. So yeah, definitely go check this out. But basically, this edition was interesting because he talked about the first hard fork that's going to be happening for the Beacon chain. I think it's going to be happening mid-year. Yeah, mid-year he says here. And there's a bunch of different things that are going into this. I think they're going to fix a couple of things with the rewards. They're going to add a few things to it. And on the technical side of stuff. So yeah, that's going to be really cool to see. There's a bunch of, he includes in these updates like explainers. So he calls them the great explainers, which is a bunch of different resources for you to look at with regards to ETH2. He's got media here. He tracks the ETH2 dev calls and all the upcoming events and things like that. So this is really the quintessential kind of ETH2 resource. If you are not reading this, you do not have a view of ETH2 basically. So yeah, definitely go check this out. I'll let you read this edition yourself. I won't go through the whole thing because it's packed full of information. And yeah, I really enjoy this from Ben. So kudos to him for keeping this up. So I mentioned last week that Georgios from Paradigm kind of published a blog post on kind of Optimism's optimistic rollup. And now he's published another piece that basically explains how optimistic rollups really work and what Optimism's rollup really works. So this is Optimism focused, not just general optimistic rollups, but Optimism's implementation of it. Now, this is very technical. If you are not a technical person, you probably won't get much out of this. You can see on the screen as I'm scrolling. If you have no idea what this means, then you're probably not going to be able to follow along with this blog post too much. But in saying that, I still suggest going over it, skimming it, seeing what parts you do and don't understand. You might learn something, right? That's what I did because I know what this stuff is on the screen, but I mean, from a very, very high level, I can't read it, for example, right? I can kind of say what it is, but basically, it really does explain like on the technical side of things how Optimism's rollup works, and how we can enable these kind of trustless optimistic rollups that inherit Ethereum security and scale Ethereum. So yeah, definitely go read this if you're more the technical type, but I would suggest reading his first blog post, which is on the same website, which is a higher level overview. So you don't need to, know much of the technical details to kind of get the gist of it. So definitely highly recommend reading both of those blog posts. All right, finally here, so Vitalik's out here being the best guy he can be. He donated, I think, $4.2 million to charity today. So you can see it on Etherscan here, $4.2 million worth of USDC. He sent to, what is this website here? He sent to givedirectly.org, which you can do as well. And I suggest you go and do this if you can. I think they give to a bunch of different charities here. He makes a joke here that they don't take Doge, which is funny, even though he just gave them $4.2 million. But basically, yeah, Give Directly is helps people in poverty. And they're doing a bunch of COVID relief in third world countries as well. So yeah, if you're in the donating mood, definitely go and donate. Vitalik sent 4.2 million. I mean, obviously we can't all afford to do that, but every little bit counts on these with these donations. So definitely, if you're in a position to, I suggest you go and do that. All right, that's it for today's refill, everyone. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to go and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, join the Discord channel, subscribe to the Daily Grey newsletter, and I will catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.